Welcome to Crypto Simulation Theory. I'm the Gaussian Snake. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about Bitcoin on the quarterly time frame and see if we can uncover any clues from looking at it on this time frame. Always helps to look at something on a different time frame to see if you can notice any patterns that we could apply to what we're going through right now. So I've put some whole moving averages. Again, these are not exponential or simple moving averages, but HMAs for whole moving averages on the chart for quarterly Bitcoin. And I'll explain them to you. The yellow one is going to represent the 9-month HMA. The blue is the 15-month HMA. The white is the 30-month HMA, and the red is the 60-month HMA. And what I noticed is that when all of these are stacked up nicely on top of each other, that's generally full mania. So you have the yellow or the 9 stacked up above the 15, above the 30, and above the 60. And that's typically what marks the most manic part of your bull market. And you can see that this happened in 2016 all the way through the December 2017 top. And then it happened again in 2021 where you had yellow, blue, white, red. Now, has this happened in our current market? Well, yes, it has. So there was a time where it did, and that was from about October of 2023 to January of 2024. So for just a very brief period, we had yellow, blue, white, and red. And so you might wonder what's going to happen next. And what you can notice is that we have an upcoming death cross. We actually had a death cross of the yellow with the white, and the blue with the white is happening right now. So just to recap, this is the 9-week whole moving average having a death cross, not only with the 15, but also with the 30-week. And now the 15-week is having a death cross with the 30-week. So what is going on? If you look in 2019, we never actually got stacked from yellow to red. So yeah, I mean, this is a little bit concerning, right? So you had 2 quarters that were very, very green, and now we're going red. And so we really haven't seen a situation quite like this before, except maybe a little bit in late 2016. And of course, we don't have data for the 60 month going back any further than April of 2015. So this is just one thing to notice. I'm going to be analyzing the quarterly with a lot of different indicators to just try to get an idea of what's going on here. So this is a little bit of an unusual situation to have yellow, blue, white, and red with our quarters, and then to have that start to fall apart at this stage right here. In 2019, I will say that something kind of like this did materialize, but the yellow was above the blue, but however, the white and the red were not stacked above each other the way that they would be in a bull market. So this is definitely something to pay attention to. Let's look at a bunch of other indicators and see what's going on the quarterly. Now, these are the weighted logarithmic Bollinger Bands, and this, of course, is not going to incorporate a whole lot of data, so we have no data really from 2010 till 2014. But what I do notice is that major market cycle bottoms occur near the median line of the Bollinger Band. Major market cycle tops typically penetrate the upper portion of the Bollinger Band, so they go about 2 standard deviations out on this quarterly time frame. And so you can see that we actually did do that in December, in quarter 4 of 2017. We did it again in quarter 1 of 2021, and we didn't do it at all this cycle. So that may be something to consider. And one thing to also notice is the Bollinger Bands have been constricting with time. And with constricting Bollinger Bands, that typically involves a big move coming. And so whether that big move is to the upside or the downside, of course, is the million-dollar question. But at least we can take a little bit, of reassurance here that we've never actually spent much time beneath the median line, except for briefly in the previous bear market of 2022. This is the average sentiment oscillator, and typically when the green is diverging away from the red, that is maximum bullishness, especially at the top here at a level of 70. And when you have the green converging towards the red, as here in March of 2020, April 2020, that is typically maximum bearishness. We have actually never had the green line cross the red line, but look what's starting to happen here. over time, you'll notice that the green sentiment oscillator is starting to approach the red one. These are inverses of each other. And we also have the red one kind of like coming up as well. So this is actually a bearish convergence that's happening here. We had a little bit of bullishness from July of 2023 till January of 2024, and it's been nothing but bearishness since. So the question is this going to diverge again bullish in a bullish way, or is it going to go bearish? And are we going to get a bearish cross? Is this bull market that we thought we were going to get not going to happen? It's really hard to make that sort of assessment on a quarterly time frame, but certainly this doesn't look good right now. It could change heading into quarter four, and I would certainly want to see that data. But overall, I think you can see, like if we were to draw a trend line, that the trend in terms of bullish momentum has been down, depending on how you want to draw this trend line. But this seems like a very steep drop here compared to these right here. You would sort of anticipate that we could at least reach up onto this trend line at some point. So that remains to be seen exactly how that plays out in the coming quarters. But my expectation would certainly be maybe some kind of double bottom here, and then we head back up on the green. But I can't make a prediction off of this little data, so I really don't know. I will just have to say that at the current time, it does look bearish. Okay, so I turned on the parabolic stop and release, and we have actually had 1, 2, 3 quarters that have been identified as bullish. This is a bull market according to the SAR, and the invalidation price is $17,610. So that's something that can kind of reassure you. We are way, way above that right now. The last time we broke through the bearish SAR pattern, which started in April 2022 and ended in October 2023, we blasted through it in quarter 1 of 2024. So we've just broken this trend, and you can see in Bitcoin's history, it spends a lot of time in fairly lengthy parabolic uptrends, and this is very disappointing. This is almost like a straight line. So we haven't really seen any parabolic action on the quarterly, which doesn't mean that it's coming again, but it certainly seems probable. It seems probable that this would potentially head up, but I need to find evidence to support that thesis. So for now, this is just kind of bullish, but a little bit neutral. The ADX NDI tells the story of an asset that is not going to respect this logarithmic regression curve for that much longer. The reason I say that is this white line, for those of you who don't know ADX NDI, is the trend strength. When the green is above the red and diverging away from it, that is bullish. When the green is converging towards the red, that is bearish. And you can sort of see the correspondences that happen with bull markets and bear markets. I want to focus on the overall trend. The overall trend is down. Our bull market back in 2013 had a trend strength. Let me pull the crosshairs on to really get accurate with this. In 2013, a trend strength of 95, which is extremely strong. And over time, that trend strength has really started to kind of like fizzle out. Our trend strength now, the highest it's actually gotten so far this cycle, it's been pretty disappointing at around 61. And you can see here's our little bull peak that we had around 44.30. So is this it? Is this the last bull peak for this cycle? Or are we going to get another one? Well, certainly in 2019, it appeared like it was over, but then we got another peak heading into 2021. So we could see something kind of like that play out. But it is a little concerning, and it seems like what this ADX and DI is suggesting is that the logarithmic regression, which I'm going to talk about next, for Bitcoin is starting to run into a wall. And while people think that Bitcoin is just going to be up only, especially with institutional adoption, I actually beg to differ, and I think Bitcoin is likely to enter into a boring decade at some point soon, where it's going to do a whole lot of nothing. Maybe build out what will be looked at as a much longer accumulation base, or a more explosive move in the future, and we could actually see the red cross the green, entering us into a period that could last for years of weak price action for Bitcoin. Now, do I think that's coming right away? I would guess probably not. Again, this cycle hasn't necessarily fully played out, but this does look a little bearish for now. I'm just focusing more on the big picture. that we really need to take advantage of whatever this cycle offers us, because I think Bitcoin is likely to head into a time period, and it could be later this decade, it could be in the early 2030s, but I think it's going to happen, where logarithmic regression breaks and we end up just kind of chopping around for a little while and not doing a whole lot of anything that exciting. So that is something that does not really get baked into a lot of, you hear analysts say Bitcoin's going to be at 1 million in this year, Bitcoin's going to be at 10 million, it must just go up forever. Well, no, that's not really how it works. So take advantage of the crypto market right now before it does head into a boring period, because that's what the ADX and DI is saying is going to happen. It is literally saying that's what's going to happen. Short of some miracle here. The red and the green are sort of converging towards each other. Not a great thing for the long-term health of this, or for the, I say, medium-term health of this asset over the next, maybe 5 to 10 years. It suggests trouble is brewing with this, that this logarithmic regression curve is starting to sort of flatten out. I don't know. I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. I just tell you once again what the charts are telling me right now. Quarterly Snabble RSI is also a bit concerning with this pattern of higher lows or lower highs that has been taking place each successive cycle. And this did breach the 80 level, and we have been falling since then. Question is, what's going to happen when we tap, if we tap this trend line? We did have a nice inverse head and shoulders pattern that did pop to the upside, but this is just falling down right now. So are we going to get another tap and come back up? It is a little bit, like I said, it is a little concerning. We've actually never done that before. We have never come up and broken this and then come back up again in short time. So we barely broke it though. So maybe there's something to that. Like you can see, like in 2016, you typically get these like inverse head and shoulder like patterns. We came really close to 80, and then we had a little bit of a pullback, and then we finally went way above. And in 2019, we just barely popped our head up here. You can also see back in 2014, we had a little pop on the dead cat bounce, but we've never seen anything quite like this here. Where so is this going to resolve ultimately to the downside? Are we entering into a bear market, or are we going to see some kind of bounce soon that takes us back up into this region for some time? I don't know. My thinking is sort of that we're going to see a little bit more downside, and I'm going to do a video on this after this one, and then probably kind of head up into this region here for our last hurrah, not into 2026. Let me make that drawing a little bit more realistic. Sorry, I'm just going to use a path drawing tool for this. So, something kind of like maybe, heading into September, kind of a little bit of downside. This is a quarterly thing, so, and then, I think maybe into the end of the year and into the beginning of the next quarter, next year, we can see something like this, pull back. Let me just adjust this in a second. I think it would be a lower high. We could see something like that perhaps play out this time. Remember, this doesn't have to be exactly the same every single time, but I think a pattern like this would make more sense because it's a pretty steep drop of Snabble RSI. So while it does not look good right now, it probably has more to do with where we are in this market cycle. I'm anticipating more bullishness to come. So this is kind of like what I think is likely to happen. Okay, so that's a little bit reassuring. Hey, this is Stochastic Oscillator. There's not a lot of data we can get from this, but you can see that we peaked. We kind of opened up with a peak here in January 2013. We know that the bull market ended a little less than a year later. We hit a peak here in July 2017. The bull market ended about 6 months later. We hit a peak here in October of 2020. The bull market ended about a year and a month later. And we have hit a peak in January of 2024. So is the bull market going to end at the end of this year? Is that possible? Left translated cycle? Not enough data here on a quarterly basis to really say for sure. We want to look at the level that we're at right now of 75.38, maybe draw a horizontal line there. Let's see if we can, 75.38. Sorry about that. Let me see if I can edit that real quick. Okay, 75.38. And when has this level occurred before on the way down? So on the way down, it occurred in January 2021. That was pretty much coinciding with a pretty major altcoin season, and Bitcoin was going going up at that time. July 2017, Bitcoin was beginning its parabolic leg at that time too. And you could actually argue Bitcoin was in the midst of a parabolic wave right here as well. In January of 2013, Bitcoin was also in the midst of a parabolic wave to its first top. So this would, potentially suggest that we're about to enter into a parabolic wave, but that the cycle could actually be over sooner than we think. Again, this is very limited data, so take it with a grain of salt, but that's what the data is currently saying. Okay, so the Trix bubble has a little bit concerning data. So a Trix bubble on an asset like this, right, Bitcoin on a 3-month, you're looking at some pretty long-term moving averages. So the green would represent, and gosh, I have to do these in my head. Let me just let me turn this on so I can even remind myself what these averages are. So we have the 5, and multiply this by 3. So the green is the 15-month SMA, or I think these might be, I think they're SMAs or they EMAs. I think they're SMAs. And then the this one here, this magenta one would be the 21-month SMA. The dark blue would represent the 27-month. This reddish one here would be the 33-month, and the black would be the 42-month. I'm not going to remember all that. I'm doing the math in my head. But what we notice is that this is really like, ever since we started gathering data in 2013, we had a peak here in October of 2013, and that peak coincided with pretty much the top of that market cycle before a bear market. And you can see the base here in January through July of 2016. We hit another peak right here in January 2018. Actually, it looks like if you really, again, this is quarterly data, so this is quarter. So let me go back. So this, I got to read this as quarters. So this is quarter 4 of 2013, and that is when the major cycle top occurred for Bitcoin. Okay, this is roughly quarter 4. I know it says January 2018, but it's more so quarter 4 of 2017. Bitcoin topped, went to a bear market. This right here, July of 2021, October 2021. So you could argue there was sort of a topping process occurring during that time, and that then plunged Bitcoin into a bear market. And you can see the crossover here in quarter 1 of 2022. Now, it's very scary to see this. This does not look good. We're already concave down on the shorter term 15-month simple moving average. And this is July of 2024. So this is, we'll just call it quarter 3 of 2024. If this rolls over, I mean, this hasn't even made it to the black line. We could be in for a nasty surprise if that happens. And, again, I'm not trying to be alarmist here, but if this rolls over, folks, we go into a bear market next year. Okay, if this rolls over, our cycle is very likely to top out in quarter 4 of this year, and maybe at the latest quarter 1 of 2025. Now, that has not really been my base case, but I like to look at things from different perspectives, and quarterly data is very clean. And so what this is telling me is that this bull market could potentially be over as soon as quarter 4 of 2024, or maybe quarter 1 of 2025 for Bitcoin. Okay, and Bitcoin can plunge into a bear market that soon. Now, that's assuming that this pattern repeats, right? That this just comes up and goes back down, and that ultimately our destination is someplace not great, right? This would suggest that we could be potentially entering into that half decade to decade of an accumulation phase and a much longer term bear market for Bitcoin. Okay, this has been a fear of mine, but to actually see this pattern sort of playing out, it's concerning, and it should bring you some concern and make you think, what is happening to Bitcoin? Okay, now we don't know if it's going to do this, right? We need to see what happens in quarter 4. But right now, seeing this inflection, this is not generally what you want to see this early. And you can see that we have had some pretty steep formations of, let me see if I can, yeah, I'll change the color in a second. Sorry, let me pull that up. So we have had a pretty steep decline going on here, so this isn't really something I can put on a trend line because it's been such a steep decline. We can't even get a trend line for it. We can try to make one here, but even that wouldn't quite work. Okay, it is just very disappointing, right? So we would want to at least see ourselves get up here into 2025, and that could still happen, right? This quarter is not finished yet. We have one more month of this quarter, so this concave down shape could become concave up. I mean, this would be the first cycle that we don't breach. I would think we're going to breach through these lines. So let's keep in mind that this quarter's data is not finished yet. Okay, so there's no reason to get bearish. I'm not going to say that, oh my gosh, the cycle is going to end early. It's just possible. Okay, I anticipate, we do see these other moving averages kind of turning up. So I anticipate maybe quarter three will stop being concave down in September. Because September is when rate cuts come. And maybe we'll start to see it go up towards this trend line, not the lower yellow, but the upper yellow trend line. And if that happens, we could see a more normal cycle that kind of extends deeper into 2025. That would sort of be my base case right now, that we will not end in quarter four, quarter one of 2025, but that our cycle should extend into 2025 a little bit further, and that maybe this is sort of a fake out turn down. Maybe we actually, see this turn concave up again if the quarter can end green. So September is such a crucial month for Bitcoin, because if this does end, if the quarter ends in this concave down kind of way, we've never seen concave down flip to concave up at this stage in the cycle. So we must watch this heading into the end of the year. It's absolutely crucial to see what happens when we get our quarterly close. Okay, quarterly MACD, we can't really read much from it. I mean, honestly, looking at it, it's not telling us a whole lot of much of anything. It actually looks kind of bullish on the signal line. The signal line is neither concave up nor concave down. It's kind of an inflection. The 26 times 3, what is that? 72 month minus 36 month exponential moving average is still going up, but it's starting to kind of move, look like it's ready to turn over. So looking at MACD on a quarterly basis it doesn't look like, a lot of really great data here. We did have a sort of a bullish crossover occur, bullish divergence in October of 2023. Okay. Yeah. So this was quarter 4 of 2023, and then quarter 1 was also dark green, quarter 2 was dark green, and we are seeing a light green quarter right now, quarter 3. That does not necessarily need to concern us. I mean, if we look back here, we had a dark green in quarter 2 of 2019, and we had 3 light green quarters, and we got our next dark green in quarter 2 of 2020, and then we had 4 dark green quarters in a row, January 2021. We had a light green in quarter 2 of 2021, and then we have 2 dark green quarters after that. So the presence of a light green here, while not something that we really are enjoying, does not mean anything. We could certainly see quarter 4 be dark green, which is my base case. Quarter 1 could also be potentially dark green, and maybe quarter 2 is light green, and that might be where our bear market begins. Okay, I don't know. I can't really put a timeline on our cycle at the moment, but notice that the bear market was so bad that we actually had our first dark red histogram bars in quarter 3 of 2022, quarter 1 of 2023, quarter 2 we had a little bit of light, and quarter 3 was the darkest, and then quarter 4 of 2023 we finally started to, I guess our bullish divergence didn't really occur until quarter 1 of 2024. So yeah, I mean, this is not good, right? This is showing that Bitcoin is weakening. Remember I talked about the logarithmic regression kind of looking like it's not really playing out very aggressively anymore, and this is kind of what you expect with diminishing returns. So Bitcoin's probably going to enter into like a boring decade of action, or boring half decade of action, And I know that's not what you want to hear, but that's again what the data just keeps telling me if you're thinking kind of really long term. I want to draw some logarithmic lines on here. I haven't done this in a while. Doing this on a quarterly is going to be very interesting. So I'm going to fit this data that we have here to plus or minus 3 standard deviations of data from the mean. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, now keep in mind that this fit that I did is to not a whole lot of data. But if you look at the, middle line is the mean, and then you have plus or minus 3 standard deviations in either direction with standard deviations of a length of 0.5. We actually wicked above plus 3 back in 2011. That's the initial capitalization period, not surprising at all. We wicked up to the plus 3 in 2013, but we only, the close actually came in in that quarter 4 of 2013 at the 2.5. And then in I'm so slow right now. Quarter 4 of 2017, we wicked to the 2.5, but we closed at the 2. Okay. And in 2019, which, was more just like a bounce, I'll kind of probably just ignore that one. And then in 2021, we just barely wicked up to the plus 2, closed just slightly below it. 2024, it's really hard to think that our bull market could be over here, right? What is interesting is we have gone right back down to the mean line and actually gobbled that up. So, quarter 1 is bearish, quarter 2 is indecisive. So this is actually kind of a good sign. I don't really mind if I've got these backwards. Quarter 1 is bullish, quarter 2 bearish, quarter 3 somewhat indecisive. So I don't mind if quarter 3 closes indecisive. I just don't want to see it come below the mean line. That's generally not a great thing. So, right now the mean line is around $55,000. So I don't mind if it dips below it during a quarter as long as it doesn't close there. So what are we going to have for quarter 4? What's happened before when we've hit this mean line coming in from below? Okay, well, we hit it here. Bear market started. In 2019, we had to endure some pretty painful quarters, right? It took us a while to start our bull market. In quarter 4 of 2018, we went through this, and that marked the end of the bear market, at least the first part of the bear market. In quarter 4 of 2014, bear market. This has always been a bear market. So we need a bounce here. Okay, so I don't mind an indecisive candle. That's fine. But if we don't get a bounce here, then we could be in for something like 2019. Okay, we could be spending some time at lower prices, right? Like for Bitcoin, and this could actually spell potential bearish quarter 4. Again, that's not my base case. I am encouraged by this indecisive candle. If we look at the candles that kind of took us to the depths below, they weren't like in 2022. That's not indecisive at all. That's very, very bearish candle on the quarter. October or quarter 3 of 2019, that's a bearish candle, right? You can see hardly any of the downwick was bought up. We had somewhat indecisive here in 2014, but we've already gone below it. So I guess that is the one thing that we kind of have on our side right now is the indecisive nature of this quarterly close. Again, it can come down. I mean, we go to 37K if we wanted to, as long as it comes back up as indecisive in September. So we really need September to be a green month, okay? And if it is going to be a red month, it can't be too aggressive. Namely, we really need to see a close. If I get the crosshairs out, we want to see a close at the mean line at the very worst, right? So we can hold strength above the mean, and that mean line is $54,561. Okay. I think that we can at least make it on a wick to the 1.5. Okay, the 1.5 line. Right now, the 1.5 is at 167K. So if our bull market were to end today, we were to go manic, I would expect to see the absolute maximum mania price to be around $170,000. if the bull market can make it into 2025, this number will grow to around 200K by the summer. Okay. So I've been sort of projecting that the cycle top would be around 200K. I don't think this is the end. This doesn't even look like a bull market. Okay. So I see like a cup and handle forming. Okay. So we want to see this. We don't want to see this handle. If it does go beneath here, we don't want it to spend too much time beneath here, right? And we don't want it to engulf its way down. So we have to watch this. We are at such a do or die time right now. We're only going to know how this looks when we look back and, in the future, right? We're only going to know what really happened here. So, cup and handle, or are we heading into a bear market? Okay, so we don't know right now. I don't care what anybody says. We simply do not know. Okay. What is nice though is that we have some distance between where the candle's at and this median line, and we want to keep that distance. Okay, that's something that I just keep saying because it needs to happen. This is the reverse Chandy momentum oscillator, or price momentum oscillator as I like to call it. It has been weakening over time. In October of 2013, right before the November peak, we hit almost a level of 100. This is again on a quarterly time frame. Sorry, and I keep saying October, but I mean quarter 4. In quarter 4 of 2013. Please forgive me. I'm not used to talking about quarters, right? And then quarter 4 of 2017, we absolutely maxed out on here as well, around 97. Now look at how disappointing things got, and they started to really decay in 2021. This is kind of like looking back at 2021. This is a very disappointing bull market, like it really disappointing bull market. Something fundamentally changed about Bitcoin in 2021, and it could still be affecting us to this day. So notice that we hit the peak here in January of 2021 at only a level of like 60. Okay, we went from peak acceleration point here of like 97 in the previous bull to like 60. Okay, that is so disappointing. In quarter 1 of 2024, we reached a level of 27. Now I have to think we had a nice bounce in quarter 2 off of like 5, which is the lowest this oscillator has ever gone. I have to think that we can at least make it to like maybe where we see the quarter 1. I don't know if you want to call that a secondary peak, but like that level of like 44 or so. So I have to think we could like at least make it to like 44. I do think we're in for a lower high. Again, we only have 3 real data points to draw from, but this indicator also points to Bitcoin potentially entering into a much longer term bear market era. Okay. When I say bear market, I'm not talking like a year-long bear market. I'm talking about something very frustrating for Bitcoin that go through many years of nothing that exciting happening with that asset. That's what the chart is suggesting to me. That's what these indicators keep suggesting to me. So how am I going to ignore that? And maybe before we close this video, we can take a look at the stock market to see examples of where this happened on the quarterly time frame. It'd be kind of fascinating to do. So yeah, if you're watching this far into the video, then you're probably a pretty intellectual person anyways, and you wouldn't mind another 10-15 minutes of of this talk, right? I'll try to wrap it up fairly soon though. I don't want to keep you guys too long. Okay, this is an Andara Watson envelope, and this indicator separates bull from bear markets in a quarterly sense on this time frame that we're using. Look at how much red that we had from January 2023 to April 2024. So from quarter 1 of 2023 to quarter 2 of 2024, it's just been flat out red. And this indicator does lag a little bit. And now we're just barely turning green. I have to think there's going to be more green on here. Okay. I mean, every single cycle, the amount of green has been relatively constant. It's been less steep, but I have to think we're going to see some more. Okay. And this would suggest, if we follow the patterns of before, that our bull market could extend to the quarter 4 of 2025. Okay. So that's what this indicator is suggesting. Another interesting observation, again, we have very little data to go off of, but the stochastic RSI is approaching the peak levels from 2021. That's where it fizzled out here in 2021. And stochastic RSI, for those of you who don't know, it's the second derivative of price. So it's the rate of change of the rate of change, or you can think of it as the RSI of RSI. The reason why it was so steep in 2017 heading into quarter four is because that was a purely parabolic move, whereas we know in 2021 it wasn't. So the question is what's going to happen here? Now, the good news is both of these are increasing, trending upwards. Um, so on a quarterly basis, the stochastic RSI actually looks fairly healthy. What we don't want to see happen is to see this top anytime soon. We want to see this run for another few quarters. Okay, that's what we want to see to know that we have a healthy bull market, and then we want to see sort of 2021 as an anomaly. So yeah, we'll be watching this one closely, and it looks good right now. Stochastic RSI does look good, so let's watch that going forward. So then, just like before I head over to the stock market, let's just look at something else, which is well, I do want to look at one other indicator too, besides this one, but let's just count the number of red quarters that we've had, consecutively. Okay, so I'm gonna ignore this one here, but in 2011 we had 2 red quarters. That was a bear market. In 2014 we had the most red quarters we ever had were 3 in a row, and that was again in a bear market. In 2018 the most we had was 2 red quarters in a row. This was arguably, this entire move was like a protracted bear market. But this is the worst part of it, and this would be this is like price-based capitulation, time-based capitulation. So we did have 3 red candles in a row, in 3 red quarters in a row in from mid 2019 to early 2020, and then during our last bear market, we had an entire year of red candles. So notice the pattern of what's happening here. There's more red appearing in the chart on the quarters than there have been before. So from quarter one of 2022 all the way to the entire year, basically, was such a nasty bear market. And now we are potentially facing 2 red quarters in a row. So the expectation would be that we should get a green quarter after this, okay? Especially going to an indecisive. Like, these are not, like, what you're not seeing is you're not seeing the red really grow in size. So this does not look like an aggressive downtrend like some of these other downtrends do. So that is kind of a bullish sign for the moment. Don't you wish Bitcoin looked like this? So this is the stock market. I was going to look at one other indicator on Bitcoin when I paused the video there for a second, but it didn't have enough data for the quarterly. There just isn't enough data. So wow, look at the stock market since 2008. It's just been in this gigantic bull market, but it's been weakening, right? The structure has been weakening. This has been 4 green quarters in a row. Potential bullish hammer candle to close out quarter three. We'll see. We'll see what happens in September. September is typically not a great month for risk assets, but certainly could happen. So there was a point I was trying to make earlier, which is that you do get these periods where, like, and I think this is going to happen to Bitcoin. I think potentially as soon as the end of this cycle, and maybe even lasting into 2030 something, like early 2030s, it's possible that Bitcoin may enter into a period kind of like this. Okay, so let's go back in the S&P's history and identify times where things like this happened. I mean, you could go back to the beginning if you want and see that the S&P, although it's kind of hard to track data going back to the 1800s. I'm not sure I even want to go there. But you can see the Great Depression was just an absolutely brutal drop. But, nothing that exciting happened with the S&P after that drop. Like, this happened though, right? This did happen, and we had an entire decade of the S&P pretty much just putting in lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. I mean, it took like almost 2 decades before the S&P broke out and took out this high from just before the Great Depression. Like, look at this nonsense, right? Like, I'm not trying to scare you guys. I'm just talking about like a very stable asset, which is the S&P 500, stable index. Look at how long that took. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous. That took 2 decades for the economy essentially, in terms of the S&P, to break out past here, and it was just so frustrating. And you could think of this as this is your price-based capitulation, which occurred over a matter of 2 years, and this is your time-based capitulation. Look at this head and shoulders, just absolute garbage, right? And then the S&P did its thing and went up again, only to fall into another recessionary decade, right? So you had, with the Vietnam financial crisis, what you had happening here is you had lower lows and slightly higher highs. Like, something like this could certainly play out for Bitcoin at some point, where you have lower lows and slightly higher highs. And then it took quite a while to do anything that exciting. It wasn't until the 1980s that we got this really crazy bull market. And I think things like this will happen in Bitcoin's future, where you get these like decades-long bull markets that have happened with the S&P. Okay, and then look at what happened again in the 2000s. We had another one of these sideways periods where essentially we printed a double top, right? And that's not something to really ignore. That's a very bearish pattern, and sure enough, it was, right. It just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red quarters in a row. Okay, the .com recession was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 red quarters in a row. It was the most we ever had. And then the bull market that we've been in has kicked off. Now I gotta admit, this looks pretty bullish, right? So I didn't mean to move that. So like we are, coming up on rate cuts right now. Okay, we're in the rate cutting cycle, and I've done videos on this with showing like the interest rate. So we think we're going to get a rate cut this quarter. That typically is bullish for the stock market. The stock market does typically rally into rate cuts. So closing with a bullish hammer candle, certainly a possibility. We don't know exactly how September is going to close, so we don't know what this quarter is going to look like. But if it does close with a bullish hammer candle, that is definitely a bullish thing. Let's flip on some Heikin Ashi candles briefly. Okay, so I'm going to put some Heikin Ashi candles. Congratulations if you've not Renko candles. I don't use those. Heikin Ashis. So yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing to say that the stock market is weakening. I mean, other than maybe so we've got no undershadows. Everything is just overshadows, which is exactly what you want to see with Heikin Ashis. There's nothing to suggest the stock market is about to enter into a bear market. So the first rate cut, I'm not anticipating that the stock market rolls over unless something really crazy happens. It looks pretty good right now. And this bodes well for Bitcoin, okay, because a lot of this liquidity is going to flow into the crypto market. So this actually looks really good. Like, what would we notice when there's going to be a change of trend? Well, you'll see like an indecisive Heikin Ashi, like you did here, right? These more sustained, see, indecisive Heikin Ashi. And you start to see undershadows. That's sort of your warning sign. See, we had these 3 overshadows. So let's say quarter 4 has an undershadow, quarter 1 has an undershadow. We might start to worry about a recession starting in quarter 2. Undershadow, undershadow, recession. Okay, let's go back and see undershadow, recession. So anytime you see these undershadows after some overshadows, that's recession, right? That's where your worry lies. So right now, we are seeing that the candle bodies are decreasing. So that is something to pay attention to. I do think a recession is forming, but I don't think it's going to hit until 2025. So I think we're kind of, if I had to guess and I was a betting man, I'd say recession is unlikely to materialize until probably quarter 1 at the earliest of 2025. Okay. I think quarter 2 or quarter 3 is a very likely time frame for a recession to materialize, but who knows? This bull market can go on for longer than we expect. If we put on the parabolic SAR and apply it to the quarterly time frame, you can see this is a pretty strong parabolic uptrend right now. Okay, so we've got 4 dots. It's even concave up. So this bull market could extend well into 2025, and that bodes well for crypto. Okay, so if you stuck with me 45 minutes into this video, give yourself a round of applause. Give yourself a nice hand, because you've just learned a lot. Series apparently coming on. So let's just kind of recap. Like, this was a long video. Let's do a recap of everything that we just talked about. So I am going to try to change my camera view here. One second. So we did an analysis, a very deep, detailed analysis of Bitcoin on a quarterly time frame. And at the very end of the video, we compared to the stock market. The video went from bearish to bullish. Okay, so if you stop, as people who stop watching this video after a few minutes of bearishness and tuned out, which probably a lot of people did, they're going to walk away thinking that I'm thinking the bull market's about to end. But congratulations, you made it through 45 minutes of me talking and showing you all kinds of data and charts. And together with the S&P data and all the data from Bitcoin, I think the bull market's intact. I think Q4 is going to be bullish. My base case has not changed. I think rate cuts are going to provide that stimulus for the market. And I think the market will start to turn over in 2025. And looking at the Heiken Ashes for the stock market, which is where I really want to start looking, it appears that as far as like the crypto market, I think the crypto market is literally just waiting for rate cuts. I think that's all they're waiting for is rate cuts. And I think once those rate cuts start, I think crypto is going to get very bullish. Okay, so this video and the analyses that I did made me very bullish for this cycle. And I think there's a lot of money still to be made on Bitcoin, still to be made on altcoins. I'm still sticking with my end of cycle price target of over $200,000 for Bitcoin. Of course, there'll be trouble in between. But yeah, I think bullishness is coming, and it's coming soon, and I think it's going to last. Okay. Sorry about my camera. It keeps doing this. Can't seem to change those settings. As far as a much longer term picture goes, which is something we got from looking at Bitcoin on the quarterly time frame, I think we're likely to enter into a period where cycle theory falls apart in some sense. The halving matters less and less, and we could see Bitcoin do not the most exciting stuff, let's just say, for a good few years, longer than maybe you would expect. And that would make sense too if we're heading into a recession. If the next bear market that arrives is on the back of a recession, maybe a delayed hard landing into the final rate cut, whenever that is, or near it. I don't know. But whenever that happens, I think it's going to be very devastating to Bitcoin, especially if Bitcoin just enters into the final leg of its bull market now. Like, I have a situation I've drawn out where Bitcoin goes in Q4 to like 90 to 110K and then hits some resistance around 100,000. That is my base case. And then I thought, well, maybe we get a hard landing, after that. Maybe that's what happens. We get a hard landing after that. And I think that's, I was saying like maybe like Q1, Q2, we have like a pullback and then the bull takes off. That's one possibility. That's kind of my base case. But what if we enter into bullishness now and we just kind of stay bullish all through Q1 and Q2, and the hard landing is the crypto bear market, right? So we need to consider that case too. I think that a hard landing will be devastating to Bitcoin. Now, the reason why I think a hard landing could come before the massive bull market happens is just because typically a hard landing kind of cleanses you, and it provides this once in a lifetime generational buying opportunity, and you get like an incredible amount of buy volume, and it actually plunges you into a long-term bull market. So it's just too soon for me to make any predictions other than long-term predictions, other than saying I'm very confident about Q4 being bullish for Bitcoin, like 90% confident about it. 10% of me is like not confident, but I say 90% confident about a bull market in Q4. As for 2025, I just don't really want to go there right now. I've made my predictions. We'll see what happens there, but sort of like this up, down, up kind of situation. Yeah, and I think we should prepare ourselves for the structure of Bitcoin to move off of the logarithmic curve potentially in the next bear market, and to start to encounter a little bit of break of structure. Okay, I don't think it means Bitcoin's dead or Bitcoin's going away. It's just Bitcoin might have a much longer consolidation period. And that might be how it's looked back on. It's just speculation. Okay, that's what the purpose of this video was just to speculate about longer term stuff. So. Things don't look great right now. Like this is August 30th. Actually, it's August 31st as I'm recording this. It looks like the monthly close is going to be red. But I don't know. I'm feeling like September is going to trick a lot of people and may start out bearish, but it could end bullish. And I think Q4 is going to be just off the charts bullish. So that's my prognosis. I hope you enjoyed the content here. If you have any comments that you want to leave me, please do so down below. I also have a Telegram group that you can join called the Snake Pit or Sneck Pit, depending on how you pronounce it, modeled after the Gaussian Sneck or Gaussian channel. And you can see a link to that in the video description. And be sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this, if you enjoy longer form content, because I tend to do a lot of that. I keep telling myself I'm going to make shorter videos and it just doesn't happen. So, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try to do shorter videos on some things, but quality over quantity, right? Yeah. So yeah, nothing that I talked about, by the way, should be considered financial advice. It certainly isn't. Always do your own research. And yeah, that'll be all for now. Thanks for stopping by on the crypto simulation, and I will see you next time. Bye.